Well, Jo Saxton, it is so great to have you back here for the month from our homes. This is really comfortable, isn't it?
It's cozy. I like it. I like it. I like the feel.
Out of the studio into the homes. And especially as we're talking about this topic about loneliness. And I know that loneliness in leadership is a key issue that many leaders face. What are your thoughts about that as we talk about that today?
Yeah, I'm really glad as a topic it's come up, because where has there ever been a safe place to talk about feeling lonely? And I've found with the leaders I've spoken to, as I've come alongside women, whether they are in churches or in business, that loneliness is almost, it's so intense that it's almost palpable. And I think it's only been accentuated by the pandemic. It was always there, and it was always deeply there for women. And I've seen a number of reasons why. For some, it was because they were the only woman there. I think Shonda Rhimes talks about it being the first only different. So the first woman on that board, the first woman speaking at that church, the first woman doing this thing, or the only woman of color in that context, or because she's different, because she may have a different point of view, or a different lived experience, not even necessarily a point of view, but a different lived experience. Those things can accentuate the loneliness. And the dilemma with that is, as women leaders are processing those sorts of things, it can make your dream smaller, because you need community for clarity. You need community for confidence. And when you have those things taken away from you for one reason or another, the loneliness can be consuming. Yeah. And I've met many a woman in tears because of that.
I resonate with that a lot as a woman with sort of the gifting of communication and leadership, and being a brown woman. It was very lonely because a lot of people didn't understand what I was going through. Some of them didn't really want to understand. People felt threatened. And so you keep that inside, Jo, and yes, there's a deep loneliness as a leader because you don't want to share too much in case it offends or it puts you in a very vulnerable position. What would you say, I guess, to women like me or women like that who are saying, I'm afraid to share and I'm deeply lonely. How do I connect? What do I do?
Yeah, I mean, it's a complicated one, because I think there is that risk, isn't there, of there's a two-way risk. There's a risk when you hide yourself away because you want to fit, because God was actually delighted in the way he wired you. Do you know what I mean? God celebrates how you're wired. God celebrates how he made you, not a surprise or an accident to him. But I appreciate for some of us, there's a cost in stepping into how God's wired us. So I think that the first thing I want to encourage us to is in many ways the secret place with God, in terms of, hey, this is how you made me, and I want to be faithful to who you made me to be. Mm-hmm. And give me the courage to do that, the boldness to do that, the peace to simply be how you've shaped me and wired me. I think that's one thing. And then there's a really proactive but courageous for some of us thing I want to encourage us to do. And that is, we need to be actively super proactive in building relationships. And that may start online. It may start on LinkedIn. It may start on Instagram. People in our field, people who look like us and don't look like us, other women who you see are leading, maybe in a different space, but in the same kind of sphere as you, the same kind of level of leadership. We need to be proactive. And I think society sometimes has caricatured leadership as a place where you stay lonely and anybody else is a threat. And we have to be intentional about breaking that down, because it hurts us and it wounds us.
Jo, have you ever been lonely?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. In what times and sort of spaces in your life, and then how did you kind of push through that to engage community or connection?
I was lonely, and I mean, it's probably, I think of every decade. In my 20s, the loneliness was because I was single when all my friends were married, and I got married at 29, and most of my friends got married at like 23, and I was leading, and I was like, is this going to stop me? Like, if I want to settle down, do I need to settle down? Kind of thing. And there was a lot of grieving with that, and talking with mentors helped me through that era. In my 30s, my children were very young, and I felt and I was in a new country at that point, and it was like, is it okay for me to lead as the mother of young children, or is this bad? And not having, I had to find safe friendships, not necessarily people who did what I did, but people who saw me and accepted and helped me came alongside me in life. In my 40s, the loneliness is, I think it's palpable for leaders. I think there is a loneliness because we're more isolated now. There's a loneliness of wanting to find people, and often the people who you connect with may be further than you would feel comfortable with. There may be other parts of the country, other parts of the world. And I've now made it a non-negotiable that every year I'm like, God, who am I building relationships with? And I'm not just looking for one special friend, because people be busy. People are busy. I am casting the net out to meet people, connect with people, knowing that not everybody's got time.
Right.
But somewhere, if I go for 10, maybe I'll get 3. I'll start there.
That's good. And I think too, with connection and community, there's always risk. You know, I always say it's not perfect. Like people go, well, I tried, Melinda, and then it failed, so I'm not going to try anymore. And it's like, well, that's not a great attitude to have, because things aren't going to work always the way that you want. You're not going to find that perfect girlfriend or BFF at church. What would you say to that? Because I think I've really come across people who have like tried it once and then cut themselves off and say, yeah, no, that's not the community, or I'm better off on my own.
Yeah, and I want to, I'm sure I can already tell, for both of us have encountered betrayal. Do you know what I mean? We've encountered people who've let us down profoundly. And so I understand the pulling back, because it's wounding, but I want to encourage each and every one of us to say, do you want to survive that, or do you want to see it redeemed? There is a difference between the two. And I believe that God has redemption for us in this. And that's not to minimize the struggle. That's not to minimize it, but actually we were designed with relationship in mind, including those of us who lead. And actually it brings out better leadership in us, healthy people around us. So I want to encourage you and invite you to take the risky step of getting your wounds healed and trying again, because you are a healthier and more fulfilled and more effective leader because of it.
It's good. And then finally, just for someone who is lonely, who's watching this, who's listening, a verse, a anthem, a song, a hurrah. So how would you encourage them? What would you say as just a sister to her at this time? It's really hard time in this kind of year.
Yeah, I am. First of all, if that is your story, I'm really sorry that it's been so painful, and where you feel it tangibly and physically. And sometimes the thought in our mind is you're the only one, and this is something to do with you, and those thoughts are lies. And the picture that came to my mind was the story of Hagar, this woman who is caught up in somebody else's brokenness, frankly, with Abraham and Sarai, and has to escape. And she, this vulnerable woman, encounters God, and her response is, you are the God who sees me. And in the Hebrew, that's not just I saw you around. The word for seeing is a proactive word, where see with a view to get up and do something about where you're at. And I want to encourage you with her story to say there is a God who sees you and doesn't just observe you're there, but actually rises to interact with your life again, and bring people alongside you to move you forward.
I love that. I think that's perfect as we go month to month, Jo, on these segments of helping women rise up in sort of their calling and leadership. I think to identify things that we are facing, like loneliness. Last month, we talked about the imposter syndrome. Those are really important, honest things that we need to address. And I'm so glad that you are willing and able to really speak into that in an honest way and to help us along. So that's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's just keep talking for hours. But I think you have to wrap up or something. And sometime soon you'll have to come on over and hang out here in my house, and we can just chat about solve the world's problems.
There we go. And we can sit down, have snacks and beverages, talk for hours. That's the game plan.
Okay, awesome. Thanks again. We'll see you next month, Jo.